Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to you. Welcome to Cornerstone. We are the Sawyers.
Hello out there.
And I think Joe is the first one here. Good afternoon, Joe. And there's Diane. Hi, Diane. And Linda Langdon. There she is. Hi, sweetheart. I've been thinking about you and your dog, Ida. And
Okay.
just holding you in my heart.
Miss
Hello,
Jill.
Jill. Hey, Dee Dee and George. You guys are the sweetest people in the world. I tell you, you guys are marvelous, marvelous. You've helped us so much. Well, all of you have. Jill
Yeah.
has. All of you have. They just did some extra things for us since Pastor is recovering, and he is recovering. You're doing pretty good
I'm
today,
still
aren't you?
pushing. I still can't hear out of my left ear, but I'm still pushing.
Yeah, yeah. So there's Vern. Hey, Vern. Enjoyed our talk yesterday.
I can hear her from around this way.
Yeah, I should have switched sides.
That's okay. You're good.
Okay. Okay. What are we doing this evening?
Well, when the book says, or we finally find out the definition of the walk of the Spirit, it's not spooky, ghostly stuff like we used to think. That if well, put it like this: we thought that walk of the Spirit meant that we never have anything uh, happen to us physically bad, or if we walk in the Spirit, we walk with our nose up in the air and it's raining in it, and we walk around like but we don't we can't smell nothing.
Uh-huh.
The only thing we see is God. But anyway, as we went on, we were talking this morning while we was on the way to the store. Um, when I came into this thing of God in the church, I thought that everybody in the church, for the building was concerned, was sacred people, and they were set aside as to be like nobody else in the world. And when you went to this place, you were in a holy place, and the people who claimed that they were church people were different than everybody else. They made it look like they were, but I didn't know that as I got into this. It took years to find out that they wasn't much different than I am or you are.
No, they're just people who trying to make a connection with God. That's
And
all.
then when I found out that the walk of the Spirit, I thought maybe I could pray all the time and fast and seek God and study the Bible all the time. That would put me in a position to say that I'm in the Spirit.
I think a lot of us felt like our personal performance would give us a connection with God.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And so we put all concern in the form of things, the conversation of the old man. So we don't talk about nothing but the Bible. Anybody want to talk about exchanging oil in the car, we tell them that's not in the scriptures. Or if we just go get our haircut, that's not in the scripture either. But you went and get your haircut. I got to go pick up groceries. That's not in the scripture. Well, don't go to the grocery store. Let's just stay there and pray in your closet. And I thought that maybe I did think that when I found out that going in the closet praying was mean that I go in there and stay all the time and never come out to deal with everyday things. And then one day I was at the Walmart or the store at the shopping center, and I was in the store and I turned to go out to look for a certain item, and it seemed like somebody was watching me, and so I turned around and looked, and it was Jesus standing there in the store. And that happened twice.
Hmm.
And then when I turned around and looked, it was him, and I could see him. It's like everything was stripped away.
Hmm.
And I looked at him, and he pointed his left hand at me and turned around his right hand, and at the end of his right hand was my prayer closet.
Hmm.
So he was telling me that I can go out and shop and do anything I want to do, but don't forget about the bridge that took you across. But I could do anything I want to. I found out that I was not pinned down to the brass tacks and nails of staying in the closet all day long, not paying my bills. So one time I had the experience of something said to me, say, "Where you going?" I said, "I got to go downtown and pay a light bill." "No, you can't go now. You're supposed to be in prayer." You're
That was
not.
what your mind told
That's what
you.
my mind was saying. But see, I didn't know what I know that you guys know, and so I took a chance on. I said, "Well, if I'm going to take a chance on doing this, it's going to be a very dangerous thing because God may not be pleased with me. He might get mad at me. I didn't want to get bust open with a bolt of lightning, So I went downtown and found a parking space, parked real quick, paid the light bill, and run back home to the closet.
Oh.
It didn't work like that.
No, you have to live. You have
Yeah.
to just
Well,
live, and that's
that was a mind trying to build a image on what it meant to walk in the spirit.
and it
Now, go ahead.
and also it was an egoic, a spiritual ego, trying to live out spirituality
That's
as
right.
well, live out the truth, and that's why I said I feel like my spiritual ego, if there is such a thing, is being dissolved because that was uh, pushing to make a connection. That's gone limp.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gone limp in me.
But when I found out the definition of spirit, of who we really are and our true identity, it was not it was not quite as friendly of a conversation as it would be. Like, for instance, yesterday I had to go back to the emergency room to see what was going on with my hearing, and they told me I had to back off on some of the ibuprofen that they had given me and some of the other medication. And there was a nurse going past the door, and I was in the room, the examining room, and I don't know why she just come by, and I said, "I remember you." She stopped and looked at me and said, "You do?" She said, "Where I know you from?" I said, I told her, I said, if correct me if I'm, I said, "I remember you from the other side." She said, "Other side?" I said, "I was told, or I remember in heaven, that me and you talked before the conversation and decided the day that when you come past this room, you and I would meet each other again. And I remember you from the other side." She said, "The other side?" She looked at me right funny. And I said, "Well, see you later." Well, to me, that's the walk of the spirit. I don't, it don't mean you go around telling everybody your name is John Wilkes Booth, or you go around telling your name is John F. Kennedy. You go around telling your name, you'd be better off go around telling everybody you Daffy Duck. But uh, you might get better response. But the walk of the spirit is not spooky. It is not religious.
It's not really an altered state at
It's
all.
really not. It is knowing and being aware of. I was telling her today that there was a man. Then a few minutes ago, there was an accident. His spine was his spine was dislocated from the back of his brain, and he was alive in the car, but he tried to move his legs from the neck down and everything, and he couldn't move. And so somebody peeked in the car and found that he was in there and he was moving, not moving his leg, but his head. And they asked him, said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yes, I'm fine." So he said, "I must be okay. I must gonna live." Said, "I can move my neck." Said, "I can talk." So he said, "Call the medical assistants and the police department." They said, "I need help." So they did. So they took him to the hospital. They did all kind of things with him and examined him. And he was in severe pain. And he said that the pain that he had was, from what the doctor said, that he was not going to be able to survive it. So what they wanted to do was do surgery on it and hook him back up. But they said unless he do that, that he was going to live in pain the rest of his life or he would die. And so he said that no. He refused the operation, and he put him in a wheelchair, put him in the rest home, and all that stuff. And he lasted there for a while, and then finally, just out of the blue, out of nowhere, he just recovered from it, and he went back to moving like he normally would. And one day he had a problem somewhere, and I think he was uh, with his mind head hurting. So he went to a doctor that was specialized in that area, and when he did, uh, he told the doctor said, "You're not my patient." Said, I haven't seen you before." He said, "Yes, you have." He said, "Well, where?" The doctor said. He said, "I remember you back there and way back when I had an accident." He said that you were one of the physicians that told me that if I didn't have the surgery, I wouldn't walk and that I would be paralyzed the rest of my life. And he said, "Yeah." So the doctor said, "What are you doing in here? You're not supposed to be here walking." He said, "Well, I am." And he said that he said, "I am walking." And he said, "No." And he said the doctor actually laid him out, cussed him out in so many words, and said, "Turn around, let me see your neck." And he looked back there, and the doctor said, "I don't see no scars, no surgical scars back there in the back." He said, "No." He said, "I've recovered from that." He said, He said the doctor cussed him out and told him to get the heavenly holy land out his office. And said several doctors that he went to see after that incident, they got mad at him because he wasn't supposed to be walking. But his whole thing was that when he was out over on the other side, he saw a light. I've seen that light, a little tiny light, and I looked at it and I noticed that on the inside it was real. It's amazing how with my inner sight you could see the fine point of a pin, and it looked like it's just as big as a star. But this light was a true self. So he recovered from this. God is your infinite, hooked up, never dislocated, never unhooked identity. And regardless of what the mind look like, the eye look like, the talk of the mouth, you have to establish this, that once you understand by knowing, not by a whole lot of people preaching and saying things to you, but you come to the place where you will know that, yeah, like Linda, your dog.
You said her dog is suddenly improved.
Yeah.
And
okay.
She postponed the euthanasia.
Yes.
She's doing better and
yes.
has a bit
Now
more
look
time
at
with
that.
her. Wow, that's
That's like
great.
that doctor said about his gap on his neck. He can still move.
Yeah, that's good. And I had you on my heart. I was thinking, oh man, that's a hard thing to do, to put your dog down. And so I'm so glad to hear about Ida. I am so glad to hear about her.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. But I saw on television today where there was men on an island that was setting seals free from different trash that was wrapped around them, fishing lines and things like that. The seal did not understand why they were being caught and captured to cut these lines off of them.
The seal did not realize when they were being captured that it was for their good.
Right.
And that they were being held down.
Right.
And not able to move. It was for their good.
Right. Now, with that, I'll say this. In the mind of God, we decided to come here. Call it a dream or story or reality. At any rate, when you put your finger on the spirit, that bright light that you are, all of us are. We come here to act like we forgot who we were. Yeah. God decided that he was going to forget himself and be somebody else, all alone being his true self. Mm-hmm. Knowing this, we act like we did not remember where we came from. Yes. So when somebody said, when we got ready to go to a eulogy, somebody would say, "You going to heaven or hell?" I would always say, "Well, if I've been right good today, I'm going to heaven. If I've been bad, I say, well, they go to church Sunday, I'm going to hell. Then maybe I'll get a chance to turn around." I remember time I was going to church with one of the guys and never did get there. I went to some of the guys' houses, and we sat around and talked about the Bible. We didn't go to church. So when we did go to church, it's almost like every hand was pointing at us. And the judge would say, "You didn't come to church. You cut off. You make things short, and you cut around the corner." But I didn't understand the fullness of truth of the grace of God that we are in Christ. Now we're talking about the grace of God for everybody. Ones that go to church, ones that believe God, ones that don't believe in God.
You know, you made me think when you said that. Watched the other day just a little fragment of an interview that with Sugar Ray
Leonard
Robinson.
Sugar Leonard.
Sugar Ray.
Sugar Leonard.
Is it Leonard? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I don't remember his last name. Sugar Ray and Mike Tyson.
Yeah, that's Sugar Ray.
Yeah, they were being interviewed, and Mike Tyson was saying that when he was young, he idolized Sugar Ray. Mm-hmm. Because he was such an icon for him. Mm-hmm. And that was when he decided he was going to take up boxing. Mm-hmm. And it gave him direction. But he also said, because he's retired now, and so is Sugar Ray, he also said that he made himself, he had a name for himself. I can't remember what he called himself.
Can I take that off?
The dog, yes. And or something forceful. He gave himself a nickname, and it was a bulldog or something like that. Anyway, that was his identity. He said that was him, the destroyer or whatever. And that so he identified wholly and completely with that being that identity and that concept of himself. And now that he is no longer doing that, he said, I'm nothing. And then he said, I'm learning to be humble now.
Mm-hmm.
So he realized, even though he may not be talking the same way as we are, or even seeing to the depth of what we know as true about himself, he has now come to a point as he's gotten to the place where he no longer can identify himself as that. He now is having to see himself as something different. And I think that for a lot of us, we have, in our younger days particularly, we identified with so many things and thought that's who we are. And then as you approach either old age or the ending of that identity, whether it, in his case, it was no longer boxing, that that you are now has an opportunity to be unveiled.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a lot of times covered who we are or veiled who we are by believing in a concept of ourselves that was false.
Okay, here's something good. So ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. And he that loveth his wife loveth himself. You don't have to believe this. You don't have to sit around and meditate on this. It is a statement on ink and paper here. This is not just husband and wife. This is everybody.
This is everyone. Yeah.
You don't have to go to church to believe this. When I couldn't read the Bible and I saw something like this, I didn't know what it was saying. I said, how in the world I'm going to be one with somebody and they over there and I'm over here? Mm-hmm. This is the mystical side of it. We are absolutely the amazing grace of God. Nothing else in this universe, once you understand this, can take the place of the knowing of God, of your true identity. Now, this is a private, personal thing. If you want to do it like I did that lady or the nurse at the hospital yesterday, you can do that. But that comes with it a price. And the price that I had to deal with this lady was, she looked at me funny. She said, yeah, where I know you from? Now, I went to talking about way on the other side. I'm talking about in the spirit realm. I'm talking about in heaven. Mm-hmm. And I don't have any trouble saying that. I don't have any trouble talking to people about that. I don't go around looking for them to talk to. I talk to them as I go. And I leave it at that. But it's one of the most amazing things is to be able to see Jesus or to see Christ. When you hear him speak to you, he speaks like you. And the key to judging this thing as to who it is talking to you comes under the heading of love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, kindness. Yeah, we got a list of them.
Yeah.
Got a list of these kind of things that the fruits of the spirit, righteousness, and all that. Now, righteousness don't mean I lay this paper down perfect, and then when I lay it down perfect, I look at it see if it's still in the same place. One of the most perfected manifestations I had of God was in the council room. I was sitting at a table like this, and at that time, there was no such thing as online courses that we thought of like now. When I looked at the table in the council room, Jesus sitting at the end of the table, and some of you heard me say it. The perfect thing about that table was all the boards were perfectly joined together. It was perfect. The distance between my finger and the right and left finger is not perfect. But I had a chance to see what perfection looked like on a piece of wood. This wood was actually the life that I was and the life of all those people that were sitting around the table. This wood was so perfect that here it is now, in order for me to see the perfection in it, I had to become the perfection itself. I didn't think then that I was perfect because when I come back to my awareness over here, I had a whole lot of things that was wrong with me. But I remember back that what was perfect didn't have anything to do with what was wrong with me. Being perfect has nothing to do with whatever you think need to be fixed.
You stink. You said you stink.
You stink. Oh, okay. I'm trying to get these words out of this ear. You think that everything that you do that is not right or is wrong, you're not perfection. Used to say it a long time. None is perfect but the Father. But then I found out as I began to dig deep into the wells of awareness, what He said He was, I am with or without flaws. So now we are here, and we decided to be here with surgical shoulder, with stitches, with bands on it. What do you call it? A cover over the top of it. What do you call that stuff? I told my button. Well, I was pulling it down, but anyway, it's too late now. It's down. So when you find out how to talk to people and see the grace of God in them, as them, to me, that's one of the most amazing experiences that you can have. It's beyond words, it's beyond thoughts. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't two and two don't even be four anymore. Your door asks for one key for one lock. Then you find out, oh, here come. You find out you got a handful of keys, and each one of those keys work the same lock. And that's something. So now that we are here in this, you guys have been absolutely great. Linda talking about her dog. We've had communication with dogs on the other side, and they talk. They say, "That's that crazy talk again." And we know that in the Bible that Noah dealt with the animals, but it's one thing for you to read about Noah and how he communicated with animals, about two, then you have the experience of a dog or a cat communicating with you. They do talk. They do understand the sound and the vibration frequencies that we present to them. Now I can tell when my puppy dog here, Miss Linda, when she hear me, and my wife's in the room, she might cock her out and look one sided, but she'll go back to the wife because that's who she follows around the house all day long. And if you if you're not used to somebody being on your coattail all the time, don't fall in love with one of these creatures because they will love you all the way to the end. And that's what you've done, Miss Linda. And that communication that you have with that puppy dog is the eternal essence that's in every one of us. All right. All right. Y'all go ahead, talk to me. All right.
I'm following you.
Yeah, I'm following. And you get familiar with the call of God on every aspect of your life. You are ready for you to be ready. You are ready for you to be ready, for it is God's pure self that has made himself ready like you. You are ready to be ready. Nothing in your life or this life can say that you are not ready. When you find out that you are the readiness of God, God wakes up in the morning, he experiences himself as you sleeping all night. But yet he wakes up in the middle of the night while your body is asleep and takes a vacation from it and then come back the next morning. And sometimes you may call it a dream, but it is just I call it a God walk or a God vacation from your body. Yeah. Now, from this place of total emptiness, from this place of total emptiness, you see all things as yourself. That's heavy. It's pretty heavy. Okay.
Linda says, I declare and I share our being. Yeah, and that's the way it
Yeah.
is. And that's the way it is with my dog. It's like we're one and the same. And she's my energetic self.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh, that's the energetic self.
She's my energetic self.
Uh-oh.
Hello, John Greason.
John J. Good to see you out there today,
I'm a
man.
little slow tonight, and so forgive me, young ladies and young men. I'm a little slow tonight. Still recovering from all the things Pastor and I had to do. But it's good to have you guys with us tonight. You got any more you want to share?
Well, no, I'm just waiting for you to share what you got. And some of you guys out there, come on across there and talk to us.
You gonna make them talk to you
No, I
tonight?
ain't gonna make. I'm gonna wait and listen to it. Take your time. Ain't no hurry. Spirit ain't going nowhere.
No, spirit definitely not going anywhere.
But you can say the truth of yourself is infinite. You get used to it. You get so relaxed with it. When the doctor was in the emergency room yesterday,
It was yesterday.
and we kept waiting and waiting. We stayed over there 4 hours waiting, and couldn't find out there was nothing wrong with me.
Right.
Wasn't nothing wrong with me. So we
But his mind keeps telling him there's something wrong with him.
well, it just say like I got a bug. I feel like I'm fluid. Fluid Louis. You know Fluid Louis.
Hmm.
Well, that's the way I feel, Fluid Louis.
Well, John says you're looking good.
Can you fasten this for me? I need to get a button fastened here so my beauty won't show all over the screen.
Goodness.
You are the brightness of God in its seemingly weak form. You call God and he answers when you show up. You look at God and you find him. He's no distance from you. You speak and you think it's just you, but you stop and listen. You learn how, you have found out how God has found out how in these bodies to develop his inner ear to hear himself speak, not in a egotistical way, but in a realistic reality way. You are now in the path of the right place to see the rest of you unfold in this life, the exact thing that you designed before you came here. And it's amazing. This guy said that I listened to today said that when he found out that he had lived many lives, he had lived many lifetimes, and this light being told him that he cannot die, and this light being told him that he was reincarnation of other life. He said to the light being, he said, look, he said, if I'm reincarnated now, he said, if I go back to this body, I don't want to go back and start where I left off. He said, I want to go back and make sure I finished up what I finished and not start something new again. But many of them will say, and this is spirit, once you experience this, I mean, not by letter or by notes, once you experience this, there's something of it's like those seals with those fishing nets around them. When somebody cut these nets off of you and you're afraid, something has to happen to that seal to realize that you were not here to hurt anybody, nor were they here to hurt you.
And can you imagine those seals? They were all laying out on this large beach. I can't remember where they were,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a herd of them.
Mm-hmm.
All sizes and all shapes. I mean, all sizes, just a whole herd of them. And they were out sunning on the beach. And there was this several men that got together just to rescue those that had gotten got caught in nets and all of that. And but can you imagine? I feel like we are like those little seals,
Mm-hmm.
and we're caught in nets and don't realize
Mm-hmm.
that is chasing us down and holding us is there really to set us free. But and I remember there was was it that said that when people don't wake up on this side, when they leave this earth and they exit their bodies and they go into that heavenly astral realm, they will fight the angels because they think the angels are demons, and the angels are those that are trying to actually deliver them. And so I think there are a lot of situations in our lives where we interpret it as something that's threatening, but in actuality, it's there to free us.
I remember a little boy, you may hear me say it, it may sound redundant. I had a little dog, and I don't know where the dog came from, but it came in the yard. And I named the dog Chippy.
This is when you were a kid?
Yeah. The dog did something, broke his leg, I believe. I don't know what made me think about that, but now I can see God. Something said, take 2 popsicle sticks and put them side by side on the dog's leg and wrap some cloth around it and tie it real tight. Well, I did that, and I thought maybe the dog was going to be okay with that splint around it. I didn't know what you call it, but I saw something like that on television. And after a while, I decided, I thought, okay, now it's been a week now. I said, every time I go out in the yard, the little dog would just follow me around the yard. It was a Cocker Spaniel. He would follow me around the yard. You know that does, you don't put a dog in the house on the old wood yard days. So the dog come up on the step, he'd hobble his way up the step. And I just decided, I said, I think I'll take this off and see. When I took that thing off that puppy dog leg, Miss Linda, that little puppy was the happiest thing in the world.
Was he happy because you took the sticks off, or was he happy because he was healed?
I don't know which one it was, but it worked. The only problem I had with him, Miss Linda, was that when I would leave out the back door, the backyard, across the wood yard, the dog wanted to follow me to school.
Yeah, so now why are you talking about this?
I'm saying this, that loyalty of spirit does not relinquish the loyalty of being one with you just because you don't understand why somebody had to put a splint around your leg. You have to understand through the spirit of your eternalness when somebody is saying something to hurt you or saying something to help you. Now you take this little girl sitting beside me. She's scared I'm going to fall and hurt myself. I can understand that, and it's good. Somebody needs to look after me, I guess. And so, all I want to say is that I had a chance to find out way back there in the beginning of our marriage who she was.
Before you get on to that, I noticed that when the men were trying to set those little seals free, some of them were huge, they would often try to bite them.
Yeah, they did.
And I remember years ago, I saw a dog get hit by a car, and he was actually biting the tires.
Yeah, I remember.
And if anybody tried to help him, he would try to bite them. So it's like, and I remember Lisa Natoli wrote an article, I think it's been about a week ago, about hurt people hurting others, and everyone that's hurt hurts others. So that's when a person is in pain, they will lash out at the one that's trying to help them a lot of times. And that's what those little seals were doing. They were lashing out. And they saw what they were doing as threatening, in actuality it was something good for them.
So they are loyal to you if you help them out of a situation. I mean, one of them said that they took that ring around from their neck. It was about to choke through his physical body.
Yeah.
And the seal laid there and surrendered himself. Finally.
They got so tired of struggling against or resisting.
And the seal was released from that, and he went off to the water.
And when I see things like that, I use that as the lesson that's coming to me, and that's being spoken to me. That is, I put myself in the place of that, and I realize that's how life is teaching. That's how God is rescuing us. A lot of times by holding us down, holding us back, not allowing us to do what we like to do. A lot of times it is something we label as threatening, but it is not in actuality threatening. It is definitely the freedom. And I realized this too, that the only thing that is afraid and wants to run is that egoic mind. And so it because it cannot interpret love. That's what I'm learning, that the ego cannot interpret love. It will look at love many times and say it's overbearing, it's controlling, and it has all these different negative connotations to it because it cannot see love. The ego cannot see love. However, the ego can respond. It's just as those little seals, once they got freed from the netting and they realized, I'm sure they had the realization they were helping.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. They had the realization, but not until after. Jill, I've got a few comments, if you don't mind. Jill says an article came out about how the rocks can be heard by computers. Proves the life in things that we classified as dead. That's true, Jill. We had a tree in our yard that we said was dead, and actually, it actually looked dead. In all appearances, it was dead. But we cut that thing down, and now it's a beautiful, tender plant growing up right alongside
the youngin coming up on around the trunk.
Right along the trunk. Yes, it's beautiful, and it's so full and fresh.
And
so it's not there.
I told the tree. I went out. I would talk to it, and I said, "I'm going to try to keep you alive as long as I can." And the guy came by.
But in order to keep it alive, you had to get rid of that was dead.
It was there.
And so
cut it down.
Again, that was removed. Something had to be removed for the life to come forward.
And now it's beginning to grow a big tree. So she said, "Now, how many trees are we going to let grow in this spot?" Well,
yeah, because it was coming up in two different places.
Right. And it's still
amazing. Life will always come up. And I thought about that when Jill said about even the pavement. I remember seeing life in everything, even the pavement. And what you'll notice if you go across, when you're walking on a sidewalk, many times you'll see life pushing up between the cracks of the sidewalk. Life will always find a way to come through. And that's the beauty of that you are. You will always find a way to come through, and a way to come, and a way to rise above.
Things will always come and go in the lower vibrational frequency dimension. The ego self is aware, if we might say, use this as a metaphor, that if it loses this body, it loses territory that it thinks or it thought or it conditioned itself for, that it didn't want to lose.
Wow.
The ego is out to make sure, and we used to call it darkness, Satan, and the spiritual warfare.
And the ego is not truly real. It's not really real. It's just an aspect of our mind predicting, interpreting, coming up with.
We used to call the ego a ghost with a bad toothache.
Yeah, you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, John. He says, when I turn this phone on and see you too, I see love. Thank you so much, John.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes,
we want to try to, we don't try, we just do it.
We just do it.
The definition of Satan in the most simplest term that you want to say of darkness is separation from your true identity, or separation from God.
I said this, I don't know if I said this the last time we were on or not, but I said this: if God is love, and it is, and God loves the devil as much as he loves Jesus. God loves Hitler as much as he loves Jesus. So it's not there's no preferences as to. I remember the scripture says God is no respecter of persons. So each one of us is the same to him.
Compassion that I experienced in time past, of the hurt and it's a hurt and a compassion, not to feel sorry for yourself, but to want to see whatever is standing in front of you to be restored to no pain and suffering. It's no word to describe the brokenness of Jesus' heart when you understand what unselfishness really is. When you decide one day in your infinite self, you never know when when did I do this? When did I decide to love everybody? I never told him that I loved him or I love her. The last
When
time,
did I decide to
yeah,
live
I like
beyond my
that. I like
conditionings?
that. I like
When did we decide
that. I like to tell doctors and nurses, you did a great job. You did good. Oh, I look forward to seeing you again next time around. There's
that?
two people
Hopefully not in the hospital.
not in the hospital. You know, you are the real. Oh, here comes now. You are the real wisdom of
Yes.
that cannot be put on paper. Paper. Is it paper? Paper. 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 I go to paper. That's my
Paper.
ear. And you are the purpose of God. I'll show you how purpose works. My wife is sitting here rubbing her fingers together. That's purpose.
It's because I have doggy treats under my fingernails.
That's purpose. The will of God
Baby
is
girl's over here getting her treats.
God will find us. Okay, here it comes. God will find us because He put a beacon and a radar detector inside of us.
Does God ever lose us?
I'm coming to.
God never loses us.
That's what I'm coming to now.
And we never lose God.
You jumped ahead of it, but that's all right. He fixed it so that He was never lose through a gyro system of guidance to locate every satellite in space. We made it so in our infinite self that God by us would never be disconnected from it. I'm saying something big. You're not going to tell me that Johnny and that lady on that court thing on YouTube, Johnny Depp and his ex-wife is not going through something. Yes, they are. But they both are still connected to God. I don't care what you say about it. I'm just telling you what I know.
Of course.
In fact, the attorneys that in their case is still connected to God, whether they win or not.
Right. I wanted to mention something that her comment that Brenda made. She says, that's why my heart and mind tries to change situations for those dear to me. I want love for them. Yes, and I heard another lady, and I can't remember her name. It's been such a long time ago. She mentioned that she wanted she had an estate. She was elderly, and she had an estate that she wanted to leave for her children. But there were some legalities and things that were standing in the way of her being able to do that. And I remember Byron Katie, and I don't know if you ever heard of her, but Byron Katie
You mentioned her
is
book
a spiritual teacher.
Mhm.
She said to her, she said, uh, can you right now elicit the feeling that you would have if that had already happened? And so the lady sat there for a minute and she, she tried to pull up the picture and she said, it feels good. And she said, yes, it feels good. And so she said, so in essence, it has already happened, she says. And she said, does that make you feel lighter? And she said, no. And so Byron Katie said to her, how do you know? And this is where you question the mind. How do you know if leaving this estate for your children is going to be the best thing for them? Because her mind had already said to her and convinced her that they if they don't get that inheritance, that they weren't going to make it or it's going to be some bad things happen to them. And Byron Katie simply had her to question her mind. Is it absolutely true that they have to have this estate in order for them to be happy? Is that absolutely true? The lady had to admit, not necessarily, that may not be what's best for them when you look at it in light of what's best for their evolution. what's best for them to find freedom, what's best for them to have healing. So we a lot of times we have our preconceived ideas of what's best for another person, and we really, really don't know. And that's where surrender comes in. Not surrender in the sense of I give up, but surrendering my mind telling me what is going to be best. Surrender my the belief or the wanting or desire to control, or surrendering my I know mind that says it knows what's best. And I give an example. Years ago, I learned not to pray with my mind, because when I pray with my mind, then a lot of times I will dictate to myself what I think is going to be best for me or best for that other person. And you said this a long time ago when we were learning how to pray in the spirit, to pray for you. You said, don't pray for me with your mind, pray for me in the spirit, because your mind does with your heart, because your mind doesn't know what's best for me.
That's right.
Your mind doesn't know what's best for you. And you said this, you might be asking for a Coke and God's going to give you water.
That's right.
And so that all of those things have to be surrendered. And that's, I'm glad you said that, brother. That brought that
back. The lady said,
back.
my baby was crying uncontrollably, and I didn't know what to do for it. I tried everything, the bottle, maybe if I changed his clothes, maybe it was wet, needed a diaper change. She did everything and didn't stop it. So here she comes. She said she thought about the classes that we were holding during that time, for the definition of the walk of the Spirit, the praying in the Spirit, travailing and groaning. So she said she went in the room and she knelt down and she started doing exactly the way I showed her. She said all of a sudden, there's 5 things I always tell people to look for when you're getting into this dimension. You'll see something, hear something, know something, smell something, say something, or maybe taste memory, something of the past. All right, I tell people all the time that when a certain loved one is around in the room that's deceased on the other side, you may have a smell or fragrance to come around you. So he said that the doctor told him, said, you're not going to be able to walk. You're not going to be able to function in your brain. He said, tell me every word that you can think of right now that starts with a B. And he started thinking, he said, B. He couldn't go no further than B. And he told me, he said, you see, your spine is not connected to your brain. Your brain stopped when it disconnected from the rest of your body. Now, we are connected to the rest of our eternal self in other places in the universe. When you fully sit down and have a little talk with Jesus, you're going to sit down and have a little talk with your infinite mind.
Yes. And I realized that one of the reasons why a lot of times our prayers aren't effective is because we have been praying what our mind has said is best. And we don't really know what is best. So it's best to live in your I don't know mind rather than living in your I know mind. I want to mention something that Apostle Norma says the Spirit knows the mind of the Spirit. Yes. So it's and in essence it's just coming to the place of saying, okay, I surrender what I think I know about this situation. And I'm not asking God to show me anything, because I don't have to see or be shown in order for it to work out for my good. So that's a lot of times we praying for guidance. It's our mind wanting to have some certainty and wanting to know what direction we're going in. Our mind wants to know, is this the right thing to do? But you don't have to know in order to go in the right direction. You don't have to know. And I remember the story of Abraham. Abraham was sent to go in, and he didn't even know where he was going. Mm-hmm. So your mind doesn't have to know. It is best sometimes if the mind doesn't know, because it will interfere. And Linda says this, I've been understanding as of late, all I need to do is focus on the love in all situations and circumstances. And I remember, yes, Linda, and I remember it was Byron Katie again who said before she had the awakening that she mentioned in her book, and it's called The Mind at Home with Itself. Before that, she said she was very abusive to her children and didn't realize it. And after the awakening, she no longer dictated to them anything. And she said she got to see her children for who they really are. And there was not, she gave an example of her two sons who were adults or either really, really older teenagers. And they got into a fight in the living room, and her daughter was sitting there, and she was sitting there watching it. And she said, her daughter said, "Mom, aren't you going to stop them?" And Byron Katie said that she was sitting there watching them struggle, and she realized that there was this glass coffee table there that they were eventually going to hit. And her mind says they're going to get cut up and all of this stuff. It started predicting what was going to happen. And she said because of her awakening experience, she had no urge to jump in the fight. Yeah, no urge to jump in it, no urge to stop them. She said she just watched them. And pretty soon, they both came to themselves in the midst of it, and they never fought again.
One of the things I remember when the Spirit said in the room, he said, "Get this book and read it." I picked the book up, like that book in front of me now, the book of courage. And you can see that word, Courage. I may be able to spell it looking at it, but spell it apart from that, no. But I know what I know it. And I kept looking at this. I said, how do I know what those letters are saying without understanding how to pronounce them? And I looked this thing, and he said, read this book for so many weeks, months. I carried the book around with me for a long time. And finally, I opened it up and I looked at it again. And I started calling words. This is what
this is where this is I call this is where the rubber meets the road. You do not you have come this far in your life with your intellect, but your intellect can't take you any further. You've come this far with your intellect, but your intellect cannot take you any further.
Faith is your eternal self. Faith is the mind of Christ. Faith is eternal life. Faith is your God identity. See, that removes you from technique and principle, unless you want to use them.
It removes you from performance.
You can throw some seeds out one day, and all of a sudden you come back and look, you got collards or apple tree growing up, or a pear tree, and you say, I didn't go out there and work that ground. I didn't till the ground like everybody else, but yet this pear tree growing up. That's grace.
Yes.
That's the knowing that's built into the earth. The knowing is built into you. Here it is.
Yes.
You are the now knowing mind of God without a process. There's no such thing as trying to put God in a loving situation or trying to see God as love in all things. You don't try to see God as love in all things. You just look. And if it's necessary for you to see it, you see it. You don't see it, you keep going. But you do know this, that you are in a position now to see God like I did those letters. When I picked that book up, all of a sudden I knew when the words start shooting out top of the photo of my head.
And he's talking about his early
conversion.
Experience.
When I saw, the conversion with me was not, it was an emotional thing, but it was some things that took place that I've always wanted to do, and that was to read. So when I saw these words,
because you were challenged in that area of being able to read.
Constant, all the way through school.
Yes.
And so now I look at the word hands Wayland.
And now there's nothing that you can't read. But if he had to write it down, he would probably misspell most of the words. But there's nothing you can't read.
I know what I'm saying. We call it shorthand, Sawyer's shorthand.
But
Yes.
listen, I have learned, and I learned this from when I used to manage the physical therapy clinic. There were doctors who would come in our office who couldn't spell, but they were
Really?
so highly intelligent.
Wow.
So I mean, that is not a clue that the
Oh, that's
person,
good. I like
yeah,
that.
not being able to spell has nothing to do with your intelligence. But your intelligence, your intellect, won't take you but so far. And then if spirit doesn't kick in, and spirit always kicks in. That's our point. The spirit always kicks in. And when it does, you go far, far beyond what your mind predicts and what your mind can do. And it's just really remarkable when you see how God is taking care of you and how God is navigating your life and orchestrating your life. It's life, it's life, not your life, but it's life in your form. And everything is happening as it should. There's nothing happening that's not supposed to be happening.
Slow down. Tell God everybody you meet, whether they do anything good or not. Thank you. Open the door. So I used to go to the grocery store, hold the door for somebody. They come past you and say thank you. I said, "You're welcome." I become the thank you and the you welcome.
Because love does not need a you're welcome.
That's right.
Or I say love does not need a thank you.
Oh, no,
That's what
okay,
I
that's good.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Love doesn't need a thank you. When it loves, it doesn't need a thank you. It doesn't need any notoriety. It doesn't need to be acknowledged. It doesn't need. There are no needs in love. I'm going to put this back up here.
Yeah. Hey,
Okay.
one of the ladies in the nurses at the hospital said, I said to her, I said, "You're having trouble with one of your sons." She said, I said, "I mean, you got," she said, "3." But I said, "You having," before she told me, I said, "You having trouble with one of your sons?" She said, "Yeah, not only that," she said, "My husband is having problem trying to find out what his calling is." And I said, "Preachers and people in the church tell me he's been called to preach." And he said he's not, he don't believe he is.
I have a problem with people saying they're going to know what they've been called to do, and they don't know, and they're asking somebody else. They're telling you or whoever, "I want to know what God has called me to do." And I'm thinking, if you don't know, then possibly God hadn't called you to do anything more than what you're doing.
Right, I understand. I understand. But years ago when I started out, I wanted to find out uh, how to be ordained and how to preach and what could I do if I wanted to be a preacher. And what I was basing it on was that my experience wanted me to share with these people. I went to librarians, I went to schools, went everywhere, schools and places to ask them, how can I be ordained? What can I do to get my license? What can I do to move into a place where I can become the fivefold ministry? And I didn't at the time. I didn't know anything about prophets and evangelists and teachers. All I knew about was ordinations, and I want my license and a piece of paperwork to give me or give me authority to stand out on the preaching in the street and preach in the streets. And it took me a long time to say this to you and to what I said to the lady at the hospital. It doesn't matter. And in the old days, evangelicals, we want to know what God's will is for our calling. I said, "Do you love him?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Regardless of what he is, who he is," that's why you were gone. When you went home,
Yeah.
I said, "He's teaching or preaching or not. Every time he gets up in the morning, he's preaching." I said, "Tell him it doesn't matter." Now, if all of a sudden he said it does matter, that's his ego coming back at him.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
That a lot of times we want to know what we're called to do.
Yeah.
Because our ego needs something to make it feel like it's worthwhile, or it's it has some value.
And that's what I was looking for, value, because I thought maybe if I was going to do this thing, let's say it like this, I wanted to tell everybody in the world what had happened to me, because what had happened was so profound. I actually had a chance to see Jesus in person. And I thought maybe if everybody heard somebody who saw this and it was real, that would really help them to see how real he was. It was the reverse.
No.
It was the reverse. They think you're crazy. So come to find out that Jesus is really a figment of some people's imaginations.
Yeah.
But I didn't have. I had an image, but the image that I had of the old Jesus, it left, and it changed it into the form of us. You guys are really wonderful. I got baby girl here on my knee, and she's talking to me, trying to get away to her mama. And we thank you so much for the support that you've given us by coming online. A few times we had to be off because of certain medical situations, but we're here. We have been on.
No, because you wanted to go on.
I did.
Yeah.
I thought we missed a day.
We missed one.
Okay.
That was all.
I didn't intend to miss that day. But
that was a Thursday.
Yeah. Well, thank you for waiting on us to come back. And we are grateful that you are earnestly contending with us in love and in patience. And remember, you don't turn this on and turn it off.
I got to tell Marquesa this. Marquesa started this when we were in the building in the brick and mortar. She would come on to our live classes on Tuesday nights, and she always had something in her pocketbook.
Sure did.
A treat or a piece of candy or something. And she started giving baby girl candy and treats out of her pocketbook. Now, Marquesa, every time baby girl sees a lady with a pocketbook,
she goes after.
She looks in the pocketbook to try to find the treat. And I have to explain to them why she's going for their pocketbooks. And you started that.
But it's something that's burned into her, and it was your love that reproduced this in my puppy dog, and she has not forgotten it, and not forgetting you.
No, she remembers that,
Marquesa.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you, sweetheart. You know what? You guys give us love, but we really do appreciate your coming in on this. You bless us by thanking us, but we are thanking you, not just for your financial support, because you guys have done that, but because you come on and listen to us. We don't feel like we're the most effective teachers, but we just share with you our life journey and our own self-discoveries, and we just thank you for taking part in that. Thank you, Jill. Thank you,
Miss
sweetie.
Jill.
Yes, and he goes to the ear, nose, and throat doctor tomorrow to find out about his hearing.
And when we come on again, I will talk to you about the results of it. But I know you guys are always looking for the best results.
John says he and baby girl have something in common. They both got treats. Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you,
guys. We will see you. Hopefully, if Pastor Norman is still available and Pastor's feeling up to par, we will be back on Thursday at 12:30 for Impromptu.
Live and in color.
Yes. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to sign off now. Bye-bye.
Can't get my hand up there, but I'll do what I can. Bye-bye. See you later.